We are here to unveil three specific bills, two general proposals we'll be pushing this session to get Common Core out of Louisiana. I want to start, however, by first reminding folks why it is so important we get Common Core out of Louisiana. I'll start first with the philosophical concerns I think most of us share, and then secondly, the substantive concerns. First, the philosophical concerns. I think it's important for us to step back and remember, why do we publicly fund education in America in the first place? There are many good reasons for us to fund and support public education. Certainly, it is a great way to help promote economic development and upward mobility. There have been many studies, the Haney-Schuck studies out of Stanford, showing that if your child is in a classroom with a great teacher, they are likely to earn thousands of dollars more over their careers. Secondly, it is a part of who we are in terms of upward mobility and aspirational society. The circumstances of your birth shouldn't determine your outcomes as an adult, and a great education is one of the best ways we can help children do better in our country. But the third reason is perhaps the most important, both historically and fundamentally. In our country, if you go back to the writings of the Founding Fathers, you go back to historically some of the earliest debates about why we provide education in our country, it is to train the informed citizens that are necessary for the functioning of a self-governing republic. When you listen and you read their writings, what you hear and learn from history is that they were very worried that as we train the next generation and make decisions for all of us when they participate in elections, as we train that next generation of leaders, it is important that we support critical thinking. And I think that is why so many of us are so concerned about this unprecedented attempt by the federal government to preempt decisions that are better made at the local levels, preempt decisions that are better made by parents. It's a violation of both the 10th Amendment to the Constitution as well as existing federal law. So philosophically, many of us are concerned about Common Core, and George Will and others have noted, even apart from the quality of the standards, the fact that this involves a federal takeover of what should be local decisions, a federal takeover of curriculum decisions, concerns us greatly. And right now, we're talking about math and ELA, but just imagine if the federal government were to get itself involved in teaching American history and the curriculum. Imagine whether that history would be about American exceptionalism or would it be about victimhood. These are decisions best made at the local level, best made with parents' involvement, with teachers, with local leaders. The second reason many of us are so concerned about Common Core is the substantive reasons. If you actually look at how math is being taught, if you actually look at the content behind the curriculum decisions in ELA, many of us worry about the de-emphasis on Euclidean geometry, this new fuzzy math, the de-emphasis on getting the right answers at an earlier age. Many of us are worried about the move away from classical text, but the point is this. Those are decisions that should be made at the local level, again, not in a one-size-fits-all approach. There are many other reasons, but I think these two are the main concerns that we have got with Common Core, and I think it's one of the reasons you see so many other groups and states across the country moving now to get Common Core out of their classrooms. What sounded like a great idea, voluntary, state-led high standards, it's a great concept. Unfortunately, that is not what Common Core has become. So that is why we're here today. I'm proud to announce that this year we're working with several legislators, some of which are here with us today, on a plan that removes Common Core from Louisiana and replaces it with high-quality Louisiana standards. The plan will ensure that BESI contracts, MOUs, cooperative endeavor agreements do not hand control of Louisiana schools and the education of our children to third-party entities or to the federal government. This plan will replace the PARCC test. It'll prohibit the collection of private information from students. It'll ensure that BESI, like all state agencies, is subject to the Administrative Procedures Act. Let me explain in detail what this plan will do. First, the proposed legislation under this plan will immediately remove Common Core from Louisiana. It'll establish a clear and transparent standards adoption process that includes parents, educators, and school leaders. Currently, there is no standards adoption or review process in Louisiana law. That allows BESI to circumvent the public process. That's exactly what they did back in 2010 when they adopted Common Core as guidelines and then failed to promulgate the standards through the APA rulemaking process. There's no guarantee that the current BESI standards revision process will include the public or be controlled within Louisiana using Louisiana teachers. Prior to Common Core, BESI had used to work with groups of Louisiana teachers to review standards by grade level and subject area. Our legislation will return to the pre-Common Core standards adoption process, all the while making the process even more transparent and easier to understand. While these new Louisiana standards are being developed, We propose, and in legislation, we will be proposing that Louisiana schools use the 2004-2005 grade level expectations, GLEs, and the LEAP and the iLEAP will be administered with a replenished questions bank. Now, the good news is with benchmarking, just as we used to do, we can make sure that as our kids take the LEAP and the iLEAP like they used to, we can compare those results to kids in other states. We were able to do that before, and we'll be able to do that again with benchmarking. Using the standards from the previous GLEs provides us with familiar Louisiana-based standards as we develop and update new higher Louisiana-based standards for our children. These are standards our teachers are familiar with. These are standards they know how to teach. Today, we're at a critical junction. We have a choice regarding who will run education in Louisiana. Will it be Louisiana parents and teachers, or will it be the federal government? Under the new adoption process, every elected official involved in education will vote on the draft standards, and the process will give parents the opportunity to weigh in and express their concerns. Finally, teachers on the front lines will have clarity about where this state is going when it comes to education and which standards they are to use. Ultimately, the standards will be approved by a majority vote of both houses of the legislature through an up or down vote, with recommendations sent to Bessie for amendments. And by the way, this is how the legislature approves the MFP. It's how the legislature approves the master plan for coastal restoration. So there is precedent for this type of legislative oversight and involvement. These new standards will also set minimum requirements for ELA, English Language Arts, by giving equal consideration to elements that have been minimized in the Common Core standards, like classic literature and complete works of literature. The new standards will also set minimum requirements for the use of math algorithms that consistently result in a correct answer and follow traditional formulations to combat Common Core's use of what many call fuzzy math, ensuring students are learning both how to achieve the right answer and the right answer. Seems a little counterintuitive to me. You'd actually have to write a law saying that we're going to teach our kids how to get to the right answer in math. But if that's what it takes to get common sense standards, that's what we'll do in Louisiana. And by the way, it also seems counterintuitive to me. You'd have to write in a law in Louisiana that no student should be told that they can't discuss what they learn in school or the test they're taking in school with their own parents. But if that's what it takes, we'll certainly put that into the law as well. The second thing this plan will do, and so that'll be the first piece of legislation. The second thing this plan will do is it will prohibit Bessie from entering into contracts, MOUs, CEAs, or agreements that violate Louisiana's control of education. The Louisiana Constitution gives Bessie the authority to oversee education, but they've handed some of that authority over to third-party entities. That's what they did by appointing their employees, Superintendent White, to the Park Board, which is now telling Bessie how to administer tests in Louisiana. This plan will clarify that neither Bessie nor any Department of Education employee may participate in third-party organizations that have competing authority over education in Louisiana, such as requiring adherence to specific conditions for membership unless the legislature authorizes them to do so. Further, no state funds can be spent on these contracts unless expressly provided for in law. This will provide transparency over these kinds of agreements so that parents and teachers in Louisiana can weigh in before Bessie hands over the reins to some organization out of state. In addition, no state or public funds may be spent on any contract, MOU, CEA, or waiver agreement entered into by a public education body in Louisiana that fundamentally shifts education policy in response to federal regulation or federal financial incentives. Under the plan, all MOUs or agreements in place on the effective date of the new law will be amended to comply with the Act within 60 days or be considered null and void. This legislation would prohibit any state employee, state education board member, legislator, or executive branch staff member from receiving anything of economic value from a contract with Bessie or the Department of Education. We have to know that our education leadership does not have a conflict of interest while they serve in their public capacity. This includes, but is not limited to, full-time, part-time, or freelance employment, gifts, and receipt of board fees. It will also establish a 2-year cooling-off period for these same employees, just like the rest of state employees who go into the private sector and have to deal with the state. We'll be working closely with other legislators. I know there'll be many other bills that'll be targeting Common Core while ensuring our state provides high-quality Louisiana standards. These won't be the only bills I know that'll be filed on Common Core, but these 3 bills, these 2 goals are going to be 2 of our top priorities this session. First, to remove Common Core from Louisiana and establishing a clear, transparent process to adopt Louisiana-based rigorous standards for our classrooms, for our students. And secondly, prohibiting Bessie from entering into contracts, MOUs, CEAs that violate Louisiana's control of education. I believe these bills will bring high standards to our classrooms, will result in more transparency, and empower our elected officials, our parents, and our teachers, as they should be rightfully involved in what is being taught and how it is being taught in our classrooms. I'll close with this observation. Many of those that are very strongly pushing Common Core first dismiss people who criticize Common Core as simply being conservative and radical activists. They then, after Common Core was in our classrooms for a while, they then dismissed the teachers that rose up and criticized Common Core. Now there's a third, much more powerful group, and that is the moms. There's the moms and dads, the frustrated parents of children all over the state who are now rising up and speaking and saying they want their voices to be heard. They're not simply a stakeholder in the educational process. They are the reason. They and their children are the reasons we have education. They are the reasons that we invest these resources. And the reality is this: they know the needs of their children better than any bureaucrat in Baton Rouge or Washington, D.C. That's what this debate is really about. I'm going to invite Lance first to come up, and any of these other legislators want to come up and speak. I know that the moms will be available. I know the media may want to talk to them as well. I know some of you may have to get back to the appropriations or other hearings, and so I'm going to ask the legislators to come up and speak. I'll come back and be happy to take questions, but I know the moms will be more than happy to stick around afterwards and talk to the various folks here from the media. Lance?
Thank you, Governor. I tell you, I'm proud to stand here today to participate in the governor's initiative to get Common Core state standards out of the state of Louisiana. I come from a business background, and I was raised a boy in Pineville. I'm a farmer. I'm a cattle farmer. I also fry chicken for a living, and I do a few other things. But I can tell you from a business standpoint that Common Core state standards, the wheels are falling off, and the whole program is running on bad gas all over the country. And to that point, I want to say this. Once as a businessman that you see that you made a bad investment, you need to rethink that investment. You need to find something better to replace it with, and something that everybody to a T can benefit from. And I think that's what the governor's initiative is going to do in the state of Louisiana. I'll give you an example. My wife's great-grandmother spoke nothing but French. She was from Mamou, Louisiana. And if you remember, some of you guys that are a lot older than me, the state of Louisiana tried to stamp out that Cajun culture. And I remember when I would go to her house with my dad to visit her grandparents, and Granny Grandma, they called her, was in her own room. They didn't want her to be speaking English. They didn't want anyone to be doing the Cajun traditions, because at that time, the state of Louisiana thought it was prudent to try to stamp out that culture. Think about what the governor said. What if someone in the federal government got a hold of some of these history lessons, got a hold of our culture, and decided to drill that down into our public school system here in Louisiana? It took a generation, one generation almost stamped out the Cajun culture in Louisiana. Thank God we came to our senses. Think about it on a federal scale. It would not be good for Louisiana. So I say with the governor, I stand here, I'm proud. Common Core state standards are bad for Louisiana, and the worst part of all, they are bad for our students and our families. And I'm proud to be here, Governor. We're going to get this done and pull it over the finish line this year. I think that's it from the legislature.
Thank you. As a former school board member, I think I'm very heartened by the fact that we have a democracy in the works today. We have seen that the constituents, especially the mothers, there's nothing stronger than a mother's love for their children to understand how an education can change their life. And I think that we're here today to support that premise. I think that the business community now sees that this may have been a bad idea about why Common Core did not do what they thought it was going to do, and to give us the opportunity to put the rigor back in, have all of the community, our parents, our educators, and our business community stand together and build the rigor into a system that makes Louisiana the kind of state that we're looking for, and give us the best educated children that we possibly can to compete with the rest of the nation. Thank you.
Well, I am, excuse me, Rogers Pope. You probably don't know my background. I'm going to speak a little bit from an educational standpoint. After spending 40+ years in public education, I am a strong believer in it. I'm a strong believer in what we're trying to do here today. And I applaud the governor and his administration for bringing this to us, for us. I certainly applaud the moms and the other people that have worked on this, this just didn't happen today. We've been working on this for several years. I've been watching this. We're all in favor of helping what we can for students. We're here for the students, I hope. We're all in favor of standards. None of us want to go away with standards. But what we're proposing, what is being proposed today, in my interpretation and my appreciation for, is that we can do standards in the state of Louisiana with Louisiana educators, with Louisiana people, and we'll have a better product than what we're getting from the federal government. That tells me that if you look around and if you chase the history on this, we look at how many people and how many legislators, how many governors, how many states are trying to extinguish or remove themselves from what I think is an ill-fated proposition. We'll go back to the assessment in doing Common Core, and we hadn't even mentioned about Park. Why do we just have 9 states left in it? It might be because people don't understand it. It might be because people are opting out every day because they don't want their students, their kids, to go through the stress and the strain that they are, and I see it every day. I've had doctors, I've had lawyers, I've had veterinarians, I've had lay people, I've had multiples of people come to my office. Mr. Pope, you were in education. You got to get us out of this. I cannot help my kid with homework anymore. Something is wrong with that. If we go back to where we've been and then improve on where we have been and get our own standards and do what we got to do in this state, we'll have a much better product and our students will be much better off. Thank you.
Terry Brown, I represent District 22, and I did a poll last spring and also this summer on Common Core in my district, and 84% of the people who answered the poll were opposed to Common Core. I hear people say, we need standards. Well, we have Louisiana people who can develop those standards and Louisiana teachers who can develop those standards. We're not opposed to standards. We know that we need standards. But I think it's very important that we put education back in the local level. When I was a young man back in the horse and buggy days, we didn't have a lot of tests and things like this. But when I look at a student who comes to me and her mother brings her over to see me and she's pulled her hair out. She was an A student prior to this. She's pulled her hair out. She's almost bald because she's so stressed out over the Common Core standards. I think we need to put education back into the communities and the state that is paying for the bill. Parents are paying for their children's education, and they certainly should have input into how those dollars are spent. Thank you.
It's really a pleasure, Governor. Thank you for taking such a bold stand. We really do appreciate it. For many years, I worked with former Representative Jane Smith, who was the superintendent of schools, and I was on the school board. And the one thing that we always championed was the needs of the children and the parents. And by the way, Lance, you got great fried chicken. One of the things I noticed this weekend, I had my 50th anniversary of my high school graduation. At one time, we had the highest ratio of high school graduate, college graduate of any school in the state, but we were very small. That's because we had terrific parent involvement, great teacher involvement, and I think this has kind of led us away. And all I can tell you is everywhere that I go, the topic comes up, whether it's at Walmart's, Brookshire's, grocery store, the church. People come tap me on the shoulder and we say, we sure hope you get rid of Common Core. Thank you, Governor, for taking such a bold stand. God bless you.
That chicken goes good with those brownies.
Good night.
Thank you. Bob Hinskins. I'm from District 47 down in southwest Louisiana. And, you know, I want to say, first of all, as we traveled the state, and as a group of us, and most of this group up here has traveled the state, we've heard the same stories from parents all over, whether it was in the Northwest or it was in the South. They don't like it. They want out. They can't stand what's going on in their local schools, and they don't feel like they have any control or any say-so in there anymore. It's time that we listen to the parents. Listen, Louisiana doesn't have to be the last ones off the Titanic this time. We can get out just like everyone else was, and like it's been said before, why are we still here? We need to listen to our population. We need to listen to our electorate, and I look forward to getting out this session, so thank you all very much.
Thank you. Former state superintendent and former legislator serving on Bessie now, Jane Smith. I'm excited for our state now that I see some hope at the end of the tunnel and some light. One of the things that has really played hard on my mind when I started really researching and finding out what was going on with the Common Core state standard initiatives is that you can't change something that you don't own. We have to own the standards. There's a copyright that we don't own, and if we develop our standards here in this state, we own it. That is extremely important to me. I made a motion about 6 months ago, I think, that we would return to LEAP and iLEAP during this period of time when we were trying to decide which direction we would go. I wish that that had passed. I think we would have seen less frustration among our schools. For the first time in my lifetime, I'm seeing a frustration among teachers and parents where they should be working cooperatively together. That's not happening. There's a frustration level there that we have to, as leaders, we have to stop. We have to put some really heartfelt thoughts into what we do during this session. I've worked closely with many of these legislators. I know they're sincere individuals. I look forward to some great things happening in this session and us all coming together. We've got friends on both sides of this issue, but I think good leaders, strong leaders can come together and we can develop Louisiana standards that truly reflect and we truly own. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be happy to take media questions.